Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Thought I'd do a little bit midweek upload here. A little old school where I'll touch on a couple of different topics here since they don't necessarily warrant their own individual videos, so I thought I'd put them together a little bit. Now, one of the topics I'm going to talk about here is actually something that both Neo and Dakota Sports Card Anonymous already fell over themselves this morning to do. I would have done that, but if you know anything about this channel, number one, I don't do mornings, especially when it's the morning of my birthday. Absolutely not. We are sleeping in for that. I did, and it was glorious. But I am up, and I'm going to record this video, and then I'm going to finish the rest of my coffee and make myself some brunch. It'll be fantastic. But first, let's record this video. Other thing I quickly want to mention is that I do have another video that I want to work on here. Probably another podcast episode. I did mention there might be a couple of podcast episodes this month in the lead into the National unintentionally, because I do have a couple of topics I want to touch on. And I want to flesh it out a little bit more, but I think I'll touch on a little bit about the whole collector coalition thing, since Victor, Rookie Card Specialist, made a thing about it. And even Sports Card Investor talked about it with Teapot. Since it was a topic, I've talked about it on the live stream a little bit, but I thought I would flesh out my thoughts into one specific thing. And then at the same time, also talk a little bit about content in general and some thoughts that I had since I've seen a couple of videos on that recently as well. And I thought that would make a very good podcast episode. So I think that'll be what I'll work on here. Probably before the end of the week. That's kind of my intention. Other than that, it'll be the usual videos as things come up. I do have some stuff I'm hoping is going to come in, a COMC package, and COMC will come up again here in a second. I do have a COMC package. It should be a lot of fun. Quite a bit of stuff, including my silly project that I talked about and alluded to already in the past. Also, some fun cards for the PC that are going to be great additions, because I've been having some definite fun finding some stuff. All right, so let's get into the matter at hand. First order of business, and as I go through this stuff, I will include links to the various things in the description, but we're going to touch on just a handful of things. First one here is Big Scott 35's channel. I'm actually going to be on with Big Scott on Sunday. He does Sunday live streams where he talks about various things. In the lead up to the National, he's been inviting different people on. I'm not going to the National. I've already talked about this before, but Scott asked me if I would come on to talk about, I guess, the other side of it, or whatever else Scott wants to talk about. Once we get closer to it, it'll be this Sunday. Once we get closer to it, I'll add a link to that in the description here and possibly make one more mention of it before the actual live stream takes off. But just wanted to mention to you, and I'll include a link to Big Scott's channel in the description. So we've got two things related to CSG. Now, one of them also pertains directly to COMC. So let me talk about the CSG piece first, kind of elaborating on what I've already discussed previously on the live stream, and then we'll also link it into how it comes into COMC. So first order of business is that we talked about previously on the live stream that CGC had created the merger between CGC and CSG. So now they're under one umbrella, it's all CGC. We had a good discussion about the fact that it's probably, on the one hand, it's a little confusing for somebody that's been following along. On the other hand, it's a third different version of a CSG, now CGC holder. So that can create some issues up for it. But in the long run, it's probably a good move to unify it under one umbrella so that if you submit some comic cards or kind of your Marvel cards or even Pokemon cards, it's CGC. If you commit sports cards, it's CGC. If you've got both of those cards, instead of having two separate submissions to what is effectively the same company under the same roof, now you can do it in one submission, one form, one everything else. That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it would have been nice to have gotten there ahead of time in the first place. That would have been great. But in this case, we'll work with it. One thing, though, that they also did is that they announced, basically yesterday and today, a couple of different things pertaining to this. And, thank you to CGC. I appreciate you respecting my birthday with including this information. One of the things was that they've adjusted some of the pricing to it, and now they've got a $12 bulk rate. And we talked about this a little bit before, but just to give you the high level, depending on what you want to do, the price may or may not be interesting to you. I think $12 bulk is pretty solid. 25 card minimum. Now, one of the big changes they did is that they had a Collectors Club membership, or their version of the Collectors Club membership. You could have a membership where you had certain benefits. In this case, you get certain benefits, and they've stated that they're going to announce some more benefits to it going forward. But one of the key things is that with the Collectors Club, you're actually able to get discounted submission depending on which level you go to, as cheap as, I think it's $9.60 a card. So I'll click on this over here. So I wanted to make sure I did a little bit of magic behind the scenes with the edit here so that I was able to have it up in front of me. I didn't want to guess. So this is right here a nice chart that outlines all the pieces. So under free on the left side, that's if you don't do any membership. If you don't do any membership, it's $12 bulk with the 25 card minimum. Economy is 15, Express is 50, and Walkthrough is 150. And I'll go back to the other screen where it shows the turnaround times. But I think that's fairly reasonable, all things considered. $12 per card is not bad. But then if you do the associate or premium membership, which is an option, you don't have to do it. But if you do, you get a discount on all the levels. So bulk becomes $10.80. So now you're approaching that magical $10 per card that a lot of people are interested in. And then under Elite, it's $9.60 bulk. So yes, it's 25 cards, but you're getting it under $10 per card, which is one of the things everybody complains about is like, oh, the grading's too expensive. Well, if you decide to go that route, you are getting 20% off the grading, which is already $12, which isn't too bad, and you end up at $9.60. So you end up sub $10. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The resale value of CGC / CSG cards is not the best. It's worse than a bunch of the other ones. It's worse than SGC. I don't know where it ranks actually comparatively to Beckett. That's something that maybe I'd be interested in looking into. Regardless, though, it's not great, but it's one of those things where hopefully, if they're able to now stay consistent on this and they're able to just churn around cards and get them into people's hands at the price point, with the other part that I'm going to mention here in a minute with COMC, hopefully it gives a viable option that people at least to be interested in. For PC purposes, I love the holder. I love the way the CGC holder, I guess CSG holder previously, but the CGC holder will be the same but with a different label. But I like the way the holder looks. I like the clarity of it. I like the way that a lot of cards look in it. And for PC purposes, I am more than happy to. And I was already taking advantage of the fact that through COMC, you could submit the cards. And they've made an enhancement to that, which I think is great. But simplifying the pricing structure here, allowing for people to submit without a membership, I think is great. But then giving the members more of a benefit, I think is also very good. Again, sub $10 grading for bulk, not bad. 25 cards, again, minimum, I understand. But at the same time, that's under $250 for 25 cards. Again, depending on what your situation is and what you're trying to do, that might not be a terrible idea. And then you've also got economy of $12 where you don't have that minimum. So I'll go over here real quick. So as I mentioned, there's a 25 card minimum, but then economy, you can just submit one card. And it's $500 card max value. So that's not too bad. That covers a lot of use cases. And that's a 15-day turnaround, and the bulk right now is 30 days for them. Not terrible. So about a month, again, if you're getting sub $10 for about a month, if they're able to hold that and sustain it, I think that's great. Now, one important thing that CGC / CSG had done previously is they put a lot of little fees in it because they've still got it here. Please note that $2 fee per cards will be applied for cards that are not fully described in the submission form. I understand that PSA does that as well if you miss something. But one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is that they've got the autograph thing where they'll add $2 to it. So it's the same turnaround time as a tier, but then if there's an autograph pulled from packs, they will add a $2 surcharge. Now, here's something interesting. I'm going to get into the COMC thing now. So I'll leave the link to this in the description for you. You can scan through it yourself, but that's the general gist of it here. And it's 4 levels that they're showing here, which isn't too bad. Now, through COMC, what they've done is a couple of things. They have the ability to submit cards through COMC, and I was waiting to see how long it would take for them to make the changeover from the submission being CSG or CGC, depending on whether it was a trading card game or a sports card, versus just being a unified CGC to reflect the current. The answer is they put it in as of, I believe, last night / this morning. So let me go in here into my inventory manager in COMC. Now, for disclosure, I'm not sponsored by COMC, but this is something I do like. And if you know anything about my channel, I have no problem criticizing COMC when they do something I don't like, and I've done it in the past. However, this is something that I do like. So I'm just going in here in the inventory manager. I'm just going to grab one of these inexpensive cards, and I want to show you specifically. So for this example, this is a cheapo card. The point is that this is an autograph as well. On that other screen, you saw that there was a $2 surcharge for autographs. And in the past, when you try to put in to submit an autograph card, it would actually charge you the surcharge in the COMC version as well. But here's something, and they might fix this. This might be a glitch. So I'm going to show it to you just so you can see. So under actions, you can submit for grading. And right there, you can see that it shows CGC cards. So they have updated that. So now if you click on it, so I'm just taking you through the steps real quick. They've got the declared value, which obviously determines the different levels and such. So in this case, it's really a very inexpensive card, so I'll just put it through. And here are the options they have for you. They're the same 4 options as it was on the other side. But if you notice, $250 maximum value, the bulk. Now, if you're doing it through COMC, you don't have to do the 25 card minimum, which I think is great. Obviously, you're paying a premium. You're paying $15 in this case, but you're avoiding it. But there was no special surcharge for the autograph because I tried this with a regular card as well, and it was also $15, which I think is fine. That's okay. If you're not charging me the surcharge in this case, I think it was like $3 surcharge, I think, for the autograph previously, if I'm going from memory. But regardless, so $15 bulk, 8-week turnaround. The economy one has changed here. It is a 6-week turnaround now for COMC to do it. And they also do have another way that you can actually submit through COMC, which I think is great. You've got the express and you've got the walkthrough. So basically you would click the checkbox and you submit it and it would take it out of your COMC balance, and that's how you would pay for it. And then when it's done, it would get submitted and you would have it inside of one of the screens where you'd be able to see the results of your grading and an image scan of the newly graded card. Very solid, very good option. I like it for some of my PC cards that were already in the COMC system. Now, what I like that they've added is now they've got an option if you're not currently in the COMC system. You could have submitted a card, had it processed to COMC, and then done the submission like this before, but it would have taken a while. But what they've done, and which I think is an interesting thing, and I'll include a link to this in the description for you. So this was posted today, and now they're going to do a direct-to-grading model, a direct-to-grading option, effectively making them, they already were, but it's making them a bulk submitter in the more traditional sense. And by that I mean that you would submit it to COMC, and I'm giving you the high-level version. I'll include a link to this so you can read through it yourself. But basically for $1, it allows you to skip the line. You actually get your stuff processed quicker, because if you title it as such and you ask them to process it that way, for $1 they will put it directly into the system, do the usual scan, but they won't necessarily touch the card or try to pre-grade the card the way that COMC normally does. By doing that, it streamlines the process and makes it so that the card will be in the system for you within 1 week. And after that, you're then able to click on the button the way that I just did and then submit it to CGC for grading. So that expedites the process and getting it ready for grading, getting it in the system, and then you can trigger the grading the way that I just did previously, and that allows you to be able to select the same options that you got before. So the price of those cards and the turnaround times are going to be exactly the same as what I just showed you if you had bought the card on COMC and had it graded that way. But nonetheless, having the streamlined option means that now you can treat them like a normal bulk submitter and submit the card, get a 1 week turnaround time for $1, and then get the card submitted however you want. Again, this is not going to be for everybody. It's a specific use case for folks that might want this for PC, but it effectively turns COMC into a normal bulk submitter for you to be able to submit certain cards that way if you're not able to access it normally or you're not wanting to. For somebody like me in Canada, that might make sense. I'll give you an example where it might make sense. It might make sense for me, like say in the Spring or Fall Expo, where COMC is set up. It might be a situation where I preset, select that option, submit it to them, and then that gets processed faster and gets pushed to the front of the line compared to my other cards that are just going to be put into normal processing that it's going to take, a month or 2 months. So those cards are already ready to go. I have them graded, and then COMC can hold them until I'm ready to ship them to myself. Now, you also have the other options that are normally available after you grade, because then it's inside of your inventory, so you can go and sell it. You can go and basically set it up for auction, or you can go and have it shipped to yourself at your convenience. So those options are kind of what allows COMC to do that section of it, and that's been convenient for me. So it's one of those things where the next COMC order that I have is going to have a handful of cards that I had graded through that previously, the way that they had done it before. This option allows you actually to submit cards yourself directly with the intention of getting them graded and not having to wait around for the normal processing time to happen. So it's just something I would throw out to you. Might be helpful to some of you. One other kind of caveat as well is that sometimes when you process it, if you want to make it a little bit quicker, you have to put it into the Elite service, and that was actually a $2 charge. So this one is a $1 charge to get it into that system ready to go a little bit faster in the first place. And obviously that's a little bit cheaper. So you save $1 and you get it directly set up so that you can submit it for grading. So I just think that's kind of interesting, something that's good. I like that they were able to set that up within short order of CGC announcing their new pricing. Again, it might not be for everybody, but for PC purposes and certain use cases, I think there might be something there. And in the long run, I think it's better for the overall system, something I've talked about on the live stream quite a bit. I think it's better for the system. I don't care who the number one is. Obviously, everybody has their preference, but if there's a number one, if there's a bunch of strong number twos, that's better for the overall ecosystem. That's something I genuinely believe. It's something I still believe now. As long as there's some strong number twos vying for your business, it actually keeps the competition solid, and it allows everybody to find whatever it is makes sense for them. And again, if you're somebody who's not a grader, well then, none of this applies to you anyway. So I don't see where that would cause you too much issue. So I'll include a link to these in the description for you. I think it's good that they've created this option for folks that might be interested in it. I'm glad to see that CGC is setting up some of these things in short order and getting them ready to go. I'll be curious to see if there's any more announcements leading into National and how they're received, because they're going to be doing on-site grading. So I'll be curious to see how that's received in terms of how the crowd receives the quote-unquote new CGC entity. So kudos to them and COMC for getting this underway and getting it ready. I'll definitely still be taking advantage. I've already submitted my first card for the new CGC grading, something I already had in my inventory, but I'll be curious to see how the turnaround time is on that. So far, they've been pretty good in the past for me, but I'll see if they're able to maintain the turnaround times that they've been promising and how the overall product ends up being as far as we get into the new era of CGC. So that's it for me for now. Got to touch on a couple of different topics, old school style. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be on Big Scott 35's channel. I'll include a link to that once that's ready to go, but I'll include a link to Big Scott's channel if you want to check it out otherwise. I'll also include a link to the COMC blog that includes all these details as far as direct submission through this specific service and some of the general points and details so that you're fully versed on it if it is something that is interesting to you. More videos coming up on the channel, live streams on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to continue that all the way through. No plans to change that into the summer. And hopefully another podcast episode coming for you in the next couple of days. With that said, like if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.